Hi, I'm Dr. Vonda Wright, and this is Hot for Your Health. Join us for conversations on the bleeding edge of science, health, and culture as we bring you tech innovators, thought leaders, and the movers and shakers who are transforming science fiction into your new health reality. Hi, everybody. It's Dr. Vonda Wright, and I'm so thrilled that you've joined me for another episode of Hot for Your Health. I could not be more excited to have now my dear friend, my colleague and guest, Dr. Mary Claire Haver, whom, if you do not know who she is, I think you have not been watching my channels very long, and welcome to this fold. Dr. Mary Claire Haver is a consummate educator. For her whole career, she was an academic, a program director, and now she has pivoted into the previous void of taking care of menopausal and midlife women. And so she is the author of 2 best-selling books. One is coming out in a couple days, The New Menopause, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. She was the previous author of The Galveston Diet that really changed the perspective of the way women looked at their bodies in midlife and gave them really the 1, 2, 3, 4, how to mix the foundation salad. I mean, we just need to know what to do every day, and the Galveston Diet helped us do that. But more than that, or equal to that, she still sees patients in Mary Claire Wellness. It's an individual patient clinic where she treats the whole person. And if that was not enough, people, she's a CEO out of an empire called The Pause Life, which is all things supporting women and those that love them in midlife. So, Mary Claire, I'm so glad to have you today.
Well, thank you for having me. So, Dr. Vonda Wright is one of the OG, my menopause, that's a term that we coined a year ago, just our friend group of people who were frustrated with the current state of menopause care and trying to use our collective brain power to come up with solutions outside of, it takes these medical societies years to update their guidelines. And we were like, we need to move quicker with this. And what do you know? What can I learn from you? And so she really, when if I have my top 5 menopause members that I've learned from, that have changed my practice, changed my standard, always are making me feel like I need to up my game. This lady right here. Well, she's above me on my screen.
Well, I love that. And I've loved every minute of our journey because you really have put together a interdisciplinary team, because there are OB-GYNs, but there's urologists, and I'm an orthopedic surgeon, and just a variety of people, because you and I both believe that women should be treated as whole people and not a body part, right? And so I think for me, observing your work, reading your work, that is the foundational belief that you have. We are whole people, not just a uterus or a fan and steel incision, which is that bikini incision that you guys make on people when you deliver babies. But, you've got this amazing book. You were just telling me about the events leading up to its release, which is, I was maybe 9 days, not even 9 days from the recording of this. You have a lot of events to splash it out there. But as you were reading it, as you were researching it, and I remember this, you would show up online in bed with your stack of papers. You're like, oh my God, look at this paper. It's been around 10 years. Nobody knew. What are some of the things about midlife and menopause that you've discovered digging deep, going back years in the literature that maybe weren't as well known?
I think one of the biggest things was that when I look at, we look at women's health funding, and Maria Shriver's, they published this with Lisa Mosconi, they really broke down funding from the NIH. So NIH funding is kind of the top funding source in the U.S. for research articles, for things that we respect as clinicians, as peer-reviewed, top of the line, really held up to a certain standard. It is not perfect, but it's our Google. We go to look through the NIH grants and different, and it turns out all the research that we would find on PubMed. And the $45 billion allocated for funding, women's health gets just a small percentage of that. And menopause isn't even a category of funding. But when you dig and find the word menopause in these research in this funding, you get 15 million.
Oh my God.
Billion. Yeah.
15 million is the size, to put it in perspective, of like one orthopedic grant.
Yeah.
One grant on total knee, 15 million. And that's all the spending on the entire 51% of women who are in midlife.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Beyond. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really shocking to me, and then within women's health, when you go to PubMed, which is like Google for doctors for medical research articles, you have, you type in the word pregnancy, 1.1 million articles from all time. Okay. Important stuff. We are working really hard to improve maternal health care, Type in the word menopause, 96,000 as of yesterday. Okay.
Wait, what is that percentage wise? Less than 1%.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, 10 to 1.
It's 10 to 1. Oh, it's
10%.
Yeah.
You type in the word perimenopause, 6,000 articles. So 10, so that's 1%. So it's like, wait. No wonder women are blindsided when they hit perimenopause, because one, I had no trait, like menopause, I had maybe an hour in medical school and 6 hours out of a 4-year curriculum of residency. I'm not kidding. And that held up until I left the residency direction program. We didn't have a menopause clinic. We didn't have nuanced ways to diagnose and treat. It was kind of, HRT might kill her. We were still propagating the myths around the safety, the overblown risks of HRT, and not ever talking to the patient outside of treating a hot flash, the benefits of HRT. So that kind of stuff was like absolutely shocking to me.
Horrifying.
So all this dollars, money, funds, number of articles, all represents brain power, how things are allocated, what priorities are for women's health. And again, treating us as a uterus, a vagina, a cervix, and a pair of breasts on a little man is a mistake.
Right. And the researchers that do look into this, like, you mentioned Dr. Lisa Mosconi, who is brilliant. I love that woman also. The best minds in the world, because there is no money. I say this to you as a former researcher. We spend our whole lives writing grants, not treating people and not trying to put forward the information. We're just trying to get the money to do the work. It's, what I thought? I don't want to announce it here, but you and I have talked about this before. We have enough women between us. Maybe we just crowdfund this, right? Could we raise $1 million? Every woman give $1, and even $1 million isn't a lot, but I just think that women in the home front want answers bad enough, don't you think?
I agree. And, a lot of these were articles that I found, when I was researching, tinnitus and, ringing in the ears is one of the key things that happens in menopause. Frozen shoulder, we've talked about the frozen shoulder data, how they shopped that article around and it was rejected by the orthopedic journals until they finally found, so you get the funding, you do this research, and then you go to the top journals and you have it, and they just pass. They pass. So, and it's sad that the articles I did find were buried in some of the smaller esoteric journals, so they're just not going to be read on a wide basis. So that's another problem. There's these big journals, in OB-GYN, it's the green and the gray. Of course, there's New England Journal, which is, one of the top, the JAMA, the American Medical Association. Go and try to find an article on menopause in there.
No, I tried. There's none.
So it's just on our end, this is one of the core things that we need to fix. And as females, we need to stand up and demand it.
Right. We're 51%. But you just mentioned ringing in your ears. Mm-hmm. Most women don't know that could be menopause. How about, you were posting about this recently. How about ADHD?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
So one of the hallmarks, so several things are happening through the menopause transition. We are rewiring our brains. Look at Lisa Mosconi's work, where we're utilizing glucose in the brain dramatically changes to the menopause transition, leading to some of the brain fog. Our neurotransmitters, so serotonin and dopamine, are both tremendously disrupted we see decreased rates of both through the perimenopause transition. And that usually will affect her ability to combat depression as well as her cognitive function, which usually in a female will present as some form of attention deficit. And not for hyperactivity. That rarely, it can happen, but that's not really how women present.
But just not being able to keep your thoughts together, having a buzzing in your brain, the ADHD more side of it. Yeah.
Right. And I can't tell you thousands of comments I get from women and my patients where they felt like they had to quit their job. I mean, these are people in high level, very cognitive heavy positions, lawyers, people in exec CEO, C-suite positions who are struggling and being told,
what's wrong with you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. On top of I had this when I was going through perimenopause. I'm not a rageful person. I'm a pretty like this person my whole life. I don't really get upset about much until perimenopause. When some little stupid trigger and I am raging at the other executives in the room. And afterwards I'm looking at myself and I'm like, what was that? That's perimenopause. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's so many surprising things that you're going to reveal in the new menopause book. I want to talk about one more before we start talking about our daughters, but we had this conversation offline and then you went and looked up an article about I believe as a musculoskeletal doctor, and I talk all the time about arthralgia, meaning our total body hurts, our joints hurt. We don't know why suddenly there's this up ramp. And I see a trend in my patients, women who come to me for that have been told that they have fibromyalgia. And, there are labs you can do for fibromyalgia, but many times it's a diagnosis of exclusion. And at least in my practice, it seems like there's a pattern. Midlife women all carrying a little bit of extra weight that they didn't want to have, but suddenly they have. And as I lined up the blocks, I'm like, oh my God, Mary Claire, I think this is perimenopause. And then you went and dug up an article about it, right?
So yeah, I was like, well, let me look. I mean, that's how this book wrote itself, was all of those questions. And I'm like, I'm not going to automatically dismiss it. I've never heard of it, but I hadn't heard of anything outside of a hot flash, really, and osteoporosis and general urinary changes. Yeah. No, we didn't learn about brain fog. We didn't learn about fatigue. The top symptoms of menopause. Here's the other surprising thing. In the literature, to this day, the top, the hallmark of menopause is a hot flash. That's only 85% of women. Yeah. And her period stops. Okay. Yeah. But the fatigue, almost universal.
Yeah.
The sleep disruption, almost universal. The weight gain, almost universal. And hot flashes come out like fit. Musculoskeletal pain is number 4. Yeah. When you actually talk to the patient, believe her, and don't automatically dismiss those other complaints as it's this, we don't know what's wrong with her.
Right. Well, what happens in my clinic, and I'm sure it happens in yours, is when someone comes to me for musculoskeletal symptoms and I step back, sit down, which is what I always do, and listen. Women are so underserved. Women start crying.
Always.
I am an orthopedic surgeon, right? I'm not generally dealing with life and death, but because I'm not a trauma surgeon. But women have been so not listened to that when someone like you and me just takes the time to acknowledge this is happening to you, what you're saying is true, you're not making it up, that deep empathy is sometimes so healing for women. Do you find that as you're talking around the country and talking to individual women?
Yeah, the validation piece of this is huge. And that's part of the purpose of the book, is to pre-validate women, which is why I'm praying that this gets picked up by the woman who's before her menopause journey. So she's prepared and she understands and she knows, so that she is not automatically gaslighting herself and thinking, this might be my perimenopause. Okay, let me find a menopause-informed provider and begin the conversation of how are we going to manage this through my transition and into postmenopause. That's not happening today. Women are gaslit. Clinicians are not being trained that these constellations of symptoms might be her perimenopause. And they're getting these other diagnoses of exclusion, but no one's excluding that she's losing her energy. you know, and losing her hormones in the process. So I think we could, it would just change the world. It's changing the world, you know.
It is,
and
we are changing the world. The menopause, which you've put together, is changing the world.
It kind of put itself together, you know.
They kind of all glued together, right? You're so humble. I want to give you credit, but you're so humble. But okay, so I totally agree with your line of thinking. We have to prepare for this, just like when we're in the time of our lives when we're thinking about children, we're all figuring out how much iron to take or vitamins or whatever. At what age, Mary Claire? I mean, we both have daughters. Your daughter, my oldest is 29. My youngest is 16. I think yours are right in the middle of that. At what age should we be giving this to them as their birthday present?
Definitely by 35. I think women should be screened for perimenopause beginning at 35 at probably their well woman exam. But let me say this.
Yeah.
Dumping the entire scope of women's health after the age of 35 onto the lap of the poor busy OBGYN is a mistake.
Yeah.
You know, the OB-GYN is in charge of your pelvis. Okay. And that we need to monitor you for cardiovascular disease, increased risk for musculoskeletal. This should be part of the required curriculum and training for every single person who touches a woman in medicine. And so that we all join hands to best learn how to take care of us.
Yes.
And dumping it all on me is too much.
Well, and you know what? I have always wondered why we expect our OB-GYNs to be our PCPs. And I'm as guilty as that. I mean, if I don't prescribe it myself, it's my OB. And I've taken a lot of that away from her because she's my OB. But you're right. Why aren't we asking our family
medicine and internal medicine?
Our internists, right. Yeah. You know, I'm a surgeon. I'm an orthopedic surgeon. The bone doctors should at least know the musculoskeletal. But you know what I'm doing soon is only one very visionary orthopedic department led by a woman, Dr. Lisa Galatz, has had me do grand rounds for the musculoskeletal service line. I'm about to speak at a national orthopedic meeting, and they asked me to speak on aging in physicians or musculoskeletal aging. Don't you know, Mary Claire, I'm putting in the musculoskeletal syndrome of menopause, and they don't even know it. So is that?
I love it. Well, ACOG just asked me to speak, and I almost died. You know, it's district, American College of OB-GYN.
Oh my God.
Our district. So, you know, I'm starting in Texas. That was so legitimizing to me because sometimes they look at me as a social media, you know, as an influencer. What does she know? And they don't know I have 20 years in academics that I've taught residents.
Program director.
You know, so they just see this, you know, someone who looks like me, who's got a lot of followers, and it's an automatic dismissal. So that one of our regulatory bodies who I kind of call out on a regular basis wants me to come and educate those providers on menopause. Fortunately, I've got like 10 med schools lined up. So we're getting there.
You know, what are there? There's like 125. So Mary Claire, you've got a 10th of them. Just keep marching. You're going to get it done. Keep marching.
It's only 1 hour, but it's something, you know.
It is. So you think, okay, midlife education, perimenopause education should begin around 35. Everybody should get your book, start reading about it then, start talking to the girlfriends about, okay, if we're having children, 35, we've got 10% of our eggs left. We have to start thinking about what that means to our estrogen. What other things? Because my 16-year-old, poor child, is surrounded by me talking about this all the time, and she can very articulately discuss all these things. What are the 5 other things? If you're saying, okay, grassroots, ladies 35, read the book. What other 5 things to prepare you for the storm that's coming?
Nutrition over calories, for sure. Educate yourself about nutrition, and Galveston Diet does a lot of that. But, you know, this relentless focus on caloric restriction and aerobic activity as the way to maintain your health is an absolute mistake. It doesn't do much for your bones. It doesn't do much for your muscles. And you know, because you're not eating enough protein, women are getting probably half of the amount of protein that they eat per day in order to decrease their risk of frailty. The data from the WHI was very clear. Women who, you know, FDA is recommending 0.8. Most women are getting 0.6 grams per kilogram of lean body mass. Sorry about the metrics. But I'm a scientist, so I have to think in grams and kilograms. And when you translate that, to when they looked at frailty scores, you got a 30% lower risk of frailty if you ate 1.3. That's almost double. All right. And osteoporosis and sarcopenia was much less if you ate 1.6 to 1.7. So double what most women, or triple what most women are actually getting. And people are like, oh, I feel like I'll gain weight. I'm like, you're going to gain muscle. Stop using the number on the scale. So that's one thing. Nutrition over calories, strong over skin. That is our mantra, right? Stop, your stories shake me to the core of going to the OR, opening up these poor women with fractured hips, and it is butter.
It is butter.
It's totally preventable, outside of a parathyroid hormone, problem.
All right. On average.
Most osteoporosis can be avoided,
yes.
If we do the work now.
Yes.
Eat the protein, do the resistance training, vibratory plates, weighted vests. There's so many hacks out there, but you have to do it.
Absolutely. And
you need collagen. So
absolutely. And that goes back to, let's feel good from the inside out. Because sometimes we're just tempted to go get not me. I wouldn't know the difference. And that's just my lack of fashion education. But I wouldn't know one expensive bag from the other. But sometimes that's how we make ourselves feel good. If we really want to feel good about ourselves and our future and have the confidence, it's doing what you just said. It's investing in ourselves. It's not being ashamed of eating an actual meal. Not shaming food, right?
Exactly.
I must say that all the time, because you have additional training in nutrition. You must say all the time, stop shaming your food. Right?
No.
It's not the food. Yeah.
The vitamin D, like micronutrients, making sure, and, heavy on the plants. It's only going to help you. Right. So green, red, yellow, orange, purple, eat the rainbow, we say in the Galveston diet, as many colors, as natural colors as you can get on your plate, because each one of those colors represents different areas of anti-inflammatory and natural antioxidants that are going to fight this aging process and all the other things we're doing to our body. Putting our own oxygen mask on first. I'm trying to break generational trauma in my family, and I'm very focused on this. I'm not 100. I definitely could do a better job, but learning to put up boundaries for unhealthy things in your life, even though you still might love that person, you don't have to. You can put up a healthy boundary. I'm trying to teach my children that, and to do that for myself so that I can be a better mother to them, even though I'm adult. You're an adult mother.
Adults. Well, and all these things you've mentioned, the calories, lift weights, don't do all cardio, where our aim is to be strong, not skinny, getting our micronutrients. It sounds on one hand, two hands, like a lot, but honestly, once it becomes your lifestyle, it's easy peasy. You don't think about it. It's just how I do it. The other day I had lunch with a girlfriend, and people always get guilty in front of me. I don't know. And I never talk to them about food. They're like, oh my God, I can't order this in front of you. And so I ordered this beautiful kale salad and some Brussels sprouts. And she's like, oh, you're eating healthy. And I said, well,
just eating.
I like this stuff. It's how I eat. It's not any kind of special menu. I'm like, I just got to like it. So when it becomes a lifestyle for our 35-year-old people entering into 45, it is not a burden, right?
Right.
Being totally Galveston dietized is not a burden once you've got the flow of it. It's just how you eat.
And I lost my train of thought. Darn it, menopause.
It's okay. You know what? Even outside of menopause, we have so much going on. We don't think about it. But, this lifestyle we're asking the younger women to think about now. We stop laying down bone at 30. Oh my God, could you please just jump around a little bit? Yesterday's advice for me online was, could you just jump 20 times? Can we do so? It's a lifestyle, right? You're not asking people to do anything weird. You're asking them to build a lifestyle.
I'm trying. Yeah.
Yeah. We're all trying. You're doing.
And what's really frustrating, I think, for a lot of the patients who come in is that the thing, and it was certainly why I went down this path, was the things that kept me what I thought healthy. Now, again, thin was healthy for me back then. The things weren't working anymore. And what I didn't realize and what I know now is the things that were keeping me thin were attacking my bone and muscle strength and increasing my risk for frailty and osteoporosis and osteopenia. You know, my patients aren't coming in wanting a bikini body. I mean, it would be nice. They are coming in not wanting to have a long-term stay in a nursing home. They don't want to burden children with their disease, you know, and I'm personally, my grandmother, dementia, 5 years in a bed drooling on herself. My mom, she's on end stages dementia. She's been on a walker for 10 years, you know, and these painful
woman.
long conversations I have to have with my siblings over my mother's care are not what I want to do to my children. So I'm very focused on limiting that kind of need as long as possible because I don't want to burden my kids.
Well, and you want to give them the legacy of seeing the example you're setting. I mean, they're watching you. They know what you're doing. That is a tremendous legacy. As I think about the future of midlife women, as we've talked about how the 35-year-olds should start building a lifestyle, what is your hope in the future for my 16-year-old, your youngest daughter, as they come here? Are they even going to have to talk about it?
That their menopause does not herald the beginning of their decline, which is what's happening for the vast majority of us. And, you know, we're all aging. We can't avoid that. That is just a part of being a human being. But we accelerate our chronic disease risk as through the menopause transition, the risk of metabolic syndrome for age-matched women, pre- and postmenopausal, because we have a 10-year window when you might go through menopause. That's still normal, right? So some go younger, some go heavier. We take two 50-year-old women, one's postmenopausal, one's pre. The postmenopausal woman, and they're matched perfectly, they're identical twins, has a 2 to 3 times higher risk of metabolic syndrome. That should be taken off the table. I want to age like a man. Like, men live a pretty full life, and most of them just die.
Fall off. Yes.
May die one day. They were driving that day or having coffee with friends or doing whatever, and then they die. So women have this prolonged, protracted last 10-year slog of frailty, sarcopenia, osteoporosis, fracture, dementia, requiring massive amounts of help, not able to think or move. And that, no, I don't want that. I don't want to live longer for that. You know, I want my health span to increase, not my lifespan.
Exactly. I feel the same way. So we've talked about all the things we're trying to avoid. We've talked about how to educate our daughters. I want, for the last few minutes we're together, to talk about how good this is. Now that I'm 57, now that you're 55, we've built this lifestyle. I've heard you say you are in the most productive, most successful time in your life. I feel the same way. And we've had a lot of success in the past. I view this as my most ageless, authentic, and indefinable time of my entire life. I want to leave the people listening with the hope of what this can be, because we've already told them what's coming and how to prepare for it. But
if I hadn't had changed my lifestyle, if I hadn't have changed my priorities, what I felt was important, and changed my HRT is a part of it, but it's not everything, right? But if I had not addressed my menopause as a factor in how I was going to age and redefining what my priorities and how I wanted to grow old, I would not be where I am today, which is the healthiest, happiest, most productive, I've touched more lives. I've delivered thousands and thousands and thousands of babies. So proud of that, okay? And walking away from that was difficult. But my God, I can now shelter and foster the health of 1/3 of the women who are living right now.
Yeah.
And
right.
Instead of the individual babies I was delivering, and that is everything to me. But had I not addressed my menopause,
That's right,
and had the courage to take this leap, I wouldn't be here. In living the life I'm
and the
living.
best of life, right?
I would be sleepless.
Yeah,
I would be miserable. I would be probably divorced,
with no muscle, having
no muscle. I'd be on a
your
very
own
quick path to osteoporosis.
right.
So, and I was able to circumvent that with the changes. And now I just want to teach everybody that.
Yeah. And you know what you've shown, and I've shown, and the women in this little menopause have shown, is that it doesn't take 20 years to pivot directions.
No.
within a 5-year span, you can totally redirect how you're activating your health, living the lifespan. So it's doable. It's not insurmountable. You are worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You have to prioritize yourself. Stop putting everybody else's needs in front of you.
So Mary Claire Haver, your new book, The New Menopause, is already a bestseller, but when it actually physically hits shelves, I can't wait to see the tidal wave. It's an honor to know you and to be part of the menopause and really change the forefront of women's lives going forward. So I'm thankful for you, and thanks for your time today from my audience.
You're so welcome.
I'm Dr. Vonda Wright. See you next week.